Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Great to have you here with me today. We're talking about several winter storms that we're going to be tracking over the next couple weeks. This could mean big time snows, potentially in the feet for many areas, as well as ice and coastal storm action. And we'll also get into just how much snow could be falling across many of these areas. And the tropics, are we looking at more tropical moisture, or are we going to see a drying trend? Let's get into it. And looking at our snowfall totals, a sneak peek, our big weekend system could net us 6 to as much as 10 inches in some areas. Midweek, a coastal system and a southern system could combine to bring heavy snow. Warning criteria across parts of the mid-Atlantic, and more storms continue. We could be looking at blockbuster snowfall totals across much of the east. And looking at our HRRR future radar here, taking the Mesocale models first, as we stretch on through your Saturday evening, you can see this overrunning precipitation, Cleveland, Akron, Mansfield, Toledo. That's where you're going to see the sleet changing over to freezing rain. Look at that. There's a line of convection across southern Ohio all the way down and through parts of the deep south. Watch out. Could get some gusty winds, small hail, maybe some isolated severe here. Pittsburgh changing over to rain, but it's to the north here. Right around 8 p.m., we start to get this banding of snow on the northern side of the system. This is where I think you'll pile up 1 to 2 inches an hour for a time across the twin tiers of New York, Pennsylvania, into southern Connecticut, much of Connecticut, Massachusetts, into eastern New York here. Even into New York City, you're going to see some bursts of heavier snow right around 11 p.m. here. Look at this. Mixing does start to bring in some sleet here. Is that nose of warm air moves in from the north, but it's going to be limited to how far north it can make it. We're going to see many of these areas on the northern side of the system get into this 6 to 8 inch range. And look at that. As we stretch through 3 a.m., 4 a.m., you can see the back edge here changing back over to a heavy snow, and this is going to be that fluffy, powdery kind that can really pile up. Look at here by 6 a.m. in Boston. You're switching over to heavy snow as well, continuing. So I wanted to show you the NAM 3 kilometer. We'll compare the two mesoscale models. Look at that line of convection there. Yeah, you got to watch this. Could be some very gusty winds beyond, 50 miles an hour, some small hail potential here. So we'll watch out for that. But look at it. Here's the evening, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., Cleveland, north of Canton. That's where the rain snow line will be, the rain ice line, I should say. Erie breaking out with some heavy snow. See these darker blues in this white area? That is where you're going to see those snowfall rates approach 1 inch an hour, all the way down to New York City and Long Island through 9 p.m., Binghamton, Scranton area, Albany, Catskills, and Poconos really getting in on the act of snow through midnight. As we get into Saturday night here, you can see the expanse. The NAM 3 kilometer is a colder model with this system, outputting more snowfall here on the northern edge of this system, having New York City right on that snow, ice, rain line. So it's going to be really close for you. Southern New Jersey here, just breaking out with a lot of rain at this point through 4 a.m. But look at on the back edge of this, you continue to see the snow pivot. We might see a couple more inches of snow on the back side of the system as it pivots. Here it's 8 a.m. on Sunday. You can see it heading out into the Gulf of Maine and coming out as an open wave at this point with some scattered snow showers here behind it. So quite a little bit interesting, the lake effect and lake enhancement on the backside of the system right around Syracuse and Utica, New York, and the Tug Hill Plateau. And taking our mesoscale models for snowfall amounts over this weekend storm, you can see very much in agreement here with the European GFS models. You can see right around that 6 to 8 inch totals here into the purple zones. It's going to be really close because the NAM 3 kilometer brings the warmer air a little bit closer to the New York-Pennsylvania border, almost cutting off completely New York City with only about an inch, but further north totals, closer to that 6 to 8 inch total. So right around Binghamton, 5 inches on this model, 7 inches in Albany, Boston about 7, 1 inch over here in Cleveland, 3 in Erie. And let's look at your HRRR future radar snowfall amounts here. Yeah, this is the one I'm a little more in agreement with. You can see bringing those heavier snowfall totals a little bit to the south here. You can see those 6 to 8 inch totals widespread, locally higher to 9 to 10 inches. But places like the I-81 corridor of New York and Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, even over to Williamsport, showing the potential for up to 6 inches. And then right through this region here, I think this is where you're going to see the biggest snowfall totals. Now, interestingly enough, This model, the HRRR, brings 6 to 7 inches down into the New York City area, into northern New Jersey, and much of Long Island. All right, so we're going to pick up where the HRRR Future Radar and NAM 3 kilometer have left off. As we continue in time, our next system is going to be organizing here across the plains. You can see right around the 10th here of February. That's right, we're going to see that overrunning moisture. We got that Gulf moisture coming in, as well as moisture and advection here coming in from the south. Severe weather is potentially a possibility here across parts of Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and then on that northern fringe, here it is the 11th into the 12th, we could be seeing heavy snow breaking out across parts of the Mid-Atlantic, parts of Virginia, Washington, D.C., Delmarva, southern New Jersey, all the way back through Kentucky. That slides off the coast. It's not too terribly strong, but it's got a lot of moisture with it. And our next system, as we stretch on into the 12th, into the 13th, it looks like it's going to have two areas, an area of low pressure moving to the northeast, as well as cold air damming here on the east end of the Appalachians. It actually gets Cleveland, Pittsburgh in on the rain by the 13th here, but on the northern periphery, that's where you'll see those heavy snow and ice accumulations as we wind this storm up into the northeast here. So we're going to be watching a couple storms this week, and as we translate this over to the 15th into the 16th, look at this massive storm. This is going to be a massive area of low pressure around Colorado. Overrunning moisture. We have tremendous moisture coming in from the south. It's that northern area that we're going to see those heavy snowfall accumulations the 15th into the 16th. So we're looking at another potentially weekend storm changing over to rain once again in Cleveland and Pittsburgh with these further northerly tracks into the Great Lakes. New England making out with a ton of snow here as we continue, and several areas of low pressure waves riding up along this. Of course, there'll be lines of convection here across parts of the south. This northern periphery will see that snow, sleet, and freezing rain and to the 17th and to the 18th. This winds up into the Canadian Maritimes, where I'll go over that in my Canadian weather outlook in several minutes from now later on in this video. As we look into the 20th, the 21st, we see a couple storm systems that may barrel right out of the Gulf of Mexico here and the southern plains. Very similar storm track with tremendous snows continuing into parts of upstate New York and much of New England here, especially up here into Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. But you see the popular storm track as we head into the 24th. Here's another eastern Great Lakes low blasting up with some big wraparound snows on the back end of this here. So looking at our latest European run here, we're comparing that to the GFS. As we continue through this weekend, there's our weekend storm winding up into parts of the eastern Great Lakes, Ohio Valley. And as we continue in time, ultimately you can see what's going to be happening here. We got our mid-Atlantic system stretching on for your Tuesday. So we're getting into the Appalachian, southern Ohio Valley. Got that cold high to the northeast. That's where we're going to set up that heaviest snow across central Virginia, Delmarva area, maybe bringing in some sleet and ice here into southern Virginia as well. And then look at this. As we continue through time, Wednesday, February 12th, look at this. Yeah, we could see some severe weather across parts of the southern plains and parts of the deep south here on the northern periphery. That's where we see the snow and ice really kicking into the north here. Now watch this. It all depends on this low and the structure of the system. It pushes warm air into parts of central and eastern Ohio, southwestern Pennsylvania towards Pittsburgh. So watch over. There might be a changeover happening with this next system as we stretch on into Thursday and Friday next week. This storm wants to push up through the eastern Great Lakes, pushing the warm air here to the north. Now, high pressure building in behind it. We get an explosion of showers and thunderstorms next weekend. This is next weekend's storm system. It could be a very slow go of it here with this tremendous severe weather and this tropical moisture moving up from the south and the Gulf here. So watch out. Things could get really bad here on the southern end of the system. Of course, on the northern end, it all depends on the amount of cold air that's locked in place. We have this 1030 millibar high to the north. Look at here on the northern periphery, heavy snow, and in between here, some ice. So we'll have to watch for that prospect. Depending on where you are, it's now looking like we could see some very heavy snow across eastern Ohio, western and northern New York, all the way up into northern New England, with a changeover to rain here across eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. This pulls into the Gulf of Maine. This has been flip-flopping back and forth, so stay tuned. Things are likely to change with the exact track of these storm systems. One thing is for sure, we have an extreme temperature difference between the Gulf all the way up to the northern tier of our country here into Canada. And that's going to continue to fuel these heavy storms. Noticing this latest run here on the Euro has these storms pulling much further to the north, which could lead to some squall lines as far north here as northern Ohio. So watch out. Things could get really bad here. This could be a total thaw for parts of the Northeast and could lead to some flooding. Look at this, a squall line all across the East Coast by this point. It's quite possible, but as I said before, we're getting beyond 300 hours here, so a lot can change with the exact track of some of these storms. And here we are with snowfall mounts here. Yeah, you can see across much of the Northeast. That is where we're GFS going crazy with 6 to 10 inches in many areas. I think most areas will see it right around 6 to 7 inches here into the purple. And then we just pile it on top. Look at here, the Mid-Atlantic storm, 6 to as much as 12 inches in some of these locations, especially across Virginia, Delmarva area. Look at here into the Central Plains as well. That moves up through the Great Lakes, hitting Chicago with a potential warning criteria, adding more snowfall on top that here into parts of northern New England and northern New York. As we go through time, look at, there's a little snow hole here across parts of southern Ohio, Indiana. It's going to be really close though. These storms are going to be back and forth, so that might not hold up here, but look at this. If you look into these orangish colors here, these areas, you could be approaching 28 to 44 inches of snow here over the next couple weeks. And look at down and through the Mid-Atlantic as well. You're averaging about 6 to 12 inches here. Some areas upwards of 18 inches. And here we go on the European run. You can see our latest run really spitting out some interesting totals here. Yeah, as we continue through time here, so our weekend storm, European coming more in line with the GFS, anywhere from about 5 to 8 inches, locally higher to 9 inches. Here's our Mid-Atlantic storm. The Europeans kind of has this a little more tepid, still kind of agreeing here more with the GFS with the higher totals. And there's our midweek, late week system next week, really pushing up through the Great Lakes into northern New England, northern New York here into southeast Canada. As we continue through time, look at this. Through the 23rd, we're just going to pile those snowfall mounts on top each other here. And getting into the Northeast here with our European run, yeah, coming really close here to exactly what I think is going to happen with our snowfall totals with respect to our weekend system here, especially Saturday night. That's really when things are going to pile up here. That 5 to 8 inch range seems very popular. Many areas getting right around 6 here into the southern tier of New York, Catskills, Poconos, Hudson Valley, southern Adirondacks, Mohawk Valley, all the way through southern central New England here. I think you're fair game for snowfall totals here. And here we go with the GFS run, our latest run. Yeah, looking pretty good here for snowfall totals. Been very solid with the GFS, right around 6, 8, 9 inches. Some areas approaching 10. Look at this, though. New York City, it's going to be really close for you. I think there's going to be a lot of mixing potentially going on as well. Northern side could see upwards of warning criteria, closer to 6 to 7, 8. And then the southern side right around 2 or 3. So going to be interesting here, especially through the Poconos as well. It's north of this line, these purple areas, that's where you're going to see the 6, 8, locally higher inches. And as we stretch later on here with the European run, there's our midweek Mid-Atlantic system here as we continue through, Tuesday night, Wednesday. Look at that, 7 inches. I think this will spread a little bit further to the east in time. Here's the European going crazy with snowfall amounts through the 23rd, especially if you're north of this line here. That's where you could see some hefty snowfall totals. And taking the GFS a little bit further here, as we continue through time, here's our Mid-Atlantic system going crazy from Richmond all the way up to DC. Think this will be a solid warning criteria storm, upwards of that 6 to 12 inches here, locally higher to 14 or 18 potentially. And then later on next week, into next weekend, we pile more snow on top here. You can see what we could be getting into here. Some areas 15 to as much as 40 inches over the next couple of weeks. So we're talking about freezing rain here. These models typically overdo the amounts of freezing rain, but it can be noted here on our HRRR. Look at this across northern Ohio. Some areas eclipsing that 1/10 of an inch, going up towards a 1/4 inch on average. Here across parts of southwestern Pennsylvania, this is where you could get upwards. That's where the ice storm warnings are in effect. Get upwards. I think this is overdoing it, obviously, but up to 1/3 of an inch of ice is quite possible here. 3/10 of an inch of ice all the way through southern Pennsylvania here, and even into southern New York, New Jersey here, getting upwards up to 1/10 of an inch of ice. And taking a look at our liquid equivalent precipitation here on our European run, you can see here across the Ohio Valley, the Northeast, this is where we're going to see a lot of this heavy precipitation, and then stretching down into the southern plains and the deep south. This is where the storm track's going to be here, and this is where we're going to line up an average of 1 to as much as 4 inches of liquid equivalent. Look at out here in California, though. This is going to be beneficial rain, 2 to 4 inches, locally higher amounts. If we take a look at the latest GFS run here for precipitation, our first system up here into the weekend, we're averaging about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch in these darker blue areas. That's going to be mostly frozen in many areas. And then as we stretch out here in time, there it is, mid to late week system, really pummeling up all the way through the 17th here. Look at this tremendous moisture. Some of these areas 4 to as much as 7 inches of liquid equivalent. And don't forget, before we continue with more weather coverage here, if you made it this far in the video and you like it, smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I love to read your questions or comments. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe bell notification button so you're alerted with all my future weather video updates. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's continue. And looking at our upper air pattern here, as you can see, we go out here in time. Yeah, that ridge holding tough across the southeast. That's what's going to keep, these ridges up here across north-central North America. That's increasing the temperature difference, which also increases the storminess as we have that baroclinicity really set up here through Thursday, November 13th. Look at this, though. This is right around the 17th. This is the much advertised storm that we'll be watching out for. This could be the potential to be a blizzard in some areas. We'll have to watch and see which areas. And right around the 21st into the 22nd, again, another big area of low pressure. Stormy times are ahead. And looking at the GFS upper air pattern, very similar situation developing here through the 13th. That ridge across the east, still seeing that ridge trying to build in right around the 15th, but look at right around the 17th and 18th, GFS still showing a negatively tilted trough as well. Look at all this blocking up here in Greenland, ridging here all the way up to the Gulf of Alaska, the U.S. West Coast. That should bring much stormier and troughier times across the East Coast and Eastern North America. So let's take a look at the tropics here, everybody in the Caribbean, Central America, the Western Atlantic here. So let's take a look. Yeah, it is going to be drier here in the short term, but there is going to be a surge of moisture across 2 areas. So here we go through the 9th, February 9th into the 10th and the 11th. You can see some scattered showers developing here across much of Central America. We have a few showers over towards Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, especially the Lesser Antilles here. Trinidad, Tobago, maybe a few showers here through the 11th and the 12th. Now, as we get, you can see this across the Northwest Caribbean. If you do have a vacation over here towards Cancun, the next couple weeks, actually, it's going to remain pretty dry. Now, there is an area of low pressure across northern Honduras here, one across Colombia, and we have these east-northeasterly trade winds bringing in this moisture. Look at just southeast of Trinidad, Tobago here. A lot of tropical moisture that will be moving up along the coastline here, maybe clipping parts of Trinidad, Tobago as we head towards the 14th into the 15th. Ultimately, what you're seeing here is some showers in the Northeast Caribbean on this northeast easterly flow. So we're going to start to get some shower action. Pretty dry here across the Northwestern Caribbean. Jamaica will start to get some shower action around the 15th into the 16th. So watch out, maybe some of those showers and thunderstorms. Now, this area of low pressure off the coast of Colombia really starts to move in the direction of Costa Rica and Panama by this point. Still some scattered showers hanging out across the northeastern part of the Caribbean. And as we stretch in time, I don't see any chances of any of these fronts across the north getting into the Caribbean. But you do start to see things are starting to look a little clearer as we head through the 19th into the 20th, with the exception for a few areas here. The Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, Eastern Dominican Republic, and down in through parts of Central America here. I still think you'll see some scattered showers. Jamaica does start to dry out, as well as the Cayman Islands. Through the 21st here into the 22nd, 23rd into the 24th. You get the idea here. Just some scattered showers in this region. And if we take a look at our European run here, thanks to Tropical Tidbits for our European analysis here. Ultimately, you can see these showers scattered through Central America all the way through the Eastern Caribbean through Sunday into Monday. And the most concentration I can see with this area of low pressure coming off the coast of Colombia, that's going to push some rainfall towards Nicaragua and Honduras and eventually Belize, northern coast, eastern coast of Puerto Rico, all the way through Dominican Republic, a little bit here through the central Lesser Antilles as well, as we get that magnification of moisture off these east-northeasterly trade winds. We go all the way through the 13th into the 14th here. Ultimately, these are the two areas we're going to be watching for increased rainfall. But it is a bit of a drier week than we've seen in previous weeks. So a little bit drier here around Jamaica, Haiti, and the Cayman Islands as well. And looking here into the Western Caribbean through Central America, yeah, this week, all the way into this coming week, look at this. It's fairly dry. Until we get right around the 17th and 18th, we start to see a surge in moisture here across Central America. Look at Jamaica here. We're also seeing anywhere from 10 to 30 millimeters on average. Northeast Jamaica getting up to 50, and the north central coast of Dominican Republic through eastern Puerto Rico. You know, some of these areas in Puerto Rico, especially eastern Puerto Rico, could get upwards of 4 inches, close to 5 inches of rain. Also down here along Costa Rica and Nicaragua. And heading over to the European run, you can see as we stretch through this coming week, we are seeing that moisture surging, not as much though as we had in the previous couple months. So things are going to be a little bit drier, especially up towards Cancun here, where you'll see almost no measurable precipitation. Jamaica averaging out to 5 to 10 millimeters, with locally higher amounts towards 30 to 40 in eastern Jamaica for this coming week. As we go into the Eastern Caribbean, you can see those east-northeasterly trade winds continuing to funnel moisture, especially through the central Lesser Antilles. A little bit drier down towards Trinidad, Tobago, where you'll only see about 4 to as much as 10 millimeters on average. And then through parts of the Northeast Caribbean islands, that's where you'll see about 10 to as much as 30 millimeters of rain on average. So the central parts of the Lesser Antilles, that's where you're going to see upwards of 50 to 60 millimeters of rainfall, getting you up towards a half to 3/4 of an inch. And looking over to the GFS, very similar situation. We can go further out on this to the 19th, but you get the idea. All the way through the 19th, many areas across the northeastern and eastern Caribbean could be seeing upwards of 50 to 100 millimeters of rain, especially those north and east facing coastlines here, where you could get up towards a 3 to 4 inches of rain. Now, here's our Canadian winter storm outlook here. We're going to be watching the 9th into the 10th here of February. We may get brushed by this coastal system here in Nova Scotia. We'll get into those snowfall amounts momentarily. Now, behind it in its wake, high pressure builds in across much of Canada. We have a weak clipper here, February 11th into the 12th. Look at this. Not too much to talk about until we get to next week, right around the Thursday time frame into Friday. We got heavy snow breaking out across London, Toronto, Ottawa, up to Montreal, most of southern Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. Later on in the 13th, getting into some very heavy snow as this storm moves into the Gulf of Maine, with heavy snow bands moving up and through Prince Edward Island up to Newfoundland here. Watch out. Left in its wake, high pressure builds in again with another storm here from the United States kicking in. Southern Ontario and Quebec will see heavy snow breaking out once again towards New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and that slides off as an open wave. Very quiet across much of Canada. The west coast, you will start to see a storm system move in with mountain snow and valley rain by this time. But look at over here on the 17th. Let me just back this up. Another coastal storm moving up the U.S. East Coast could cause some impending snow here, especially southern New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and eventually Newfoundland again. This is going to pile up your snowfall totals, likely beyond 30 and 40 centimeters here on average. Now, longer term here through the 22nd and 23rd, we have a quicker storm that may try to go coastal here onto southeast Canada again, and a very strong storm that may be looking to go coastal on us here, bringing heavy snow to parts of southern Ontario by the 24th. So taking a look at our European run here for snowfall. Look at this for Canada. Yeah, it's southeast Canada and the west coast of Canada that's going to see all the snow Here it is. Southeast Canada, especially southern Ontario, Quebec, you could see upwards of 30 to 50 centimeters. And look at those orange zones. Right around New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, these areas could see upwards of 60 centimeters over the next couple of weeks. So if we look at temperatures, this is going to be the big story. Look at the temperature disparity here. This is what's driving our weather. Obviously, the teleconnections are not, with the NAO and the MJO index not lining up for big-time snows and cold across the east. But the fact that we have this baroclinicity between the temperatures, this is where we line up 70s and 80s along the Gulf Coast, single digits in the northern plains, and 20s across the lakes and the Northeast for Sunday. Into Monday, you can see this cold air building across the northern plains, warm air hanging out across the Gulf Coast into the 70s and 80s for Tuesday, February 11th. Look at this surge of heavy cold pushing to the south. That is going to be this warm, moist air coming up from the south here. 30s into the Ohio Valley into the Northeast for your Wednesday. Look at this. The 32-degree line is just right around this region. And we got 70s and 80s continuing along the Gulf Coast. This is why it's going to be so stormy. And it's in this cold air on the northern periphery of these systems. That's where you're going to stand the chance of seeing the biggest snowfall accumulations as we head through Friday, February 14th. The disparity grows between these temperatures. It gets colder in the north, and it gets warmer across the south. The extended forecast from our hometown viewers, Binghamton to Scranton, Super Susquehanna, River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. Look at this. As we head into tonight, snow right around 6 inches expected all the way through about 7 or 8 a.m. Sunday morning. We shut it down. We make it up to the freezing mark. Into Sunday night, into Monday, we clear it out. Partly sunny skies heading up towards 30 for Monday and Tuesday. And then we're going to start to watch that potential for that midweek system. We could see snow showers developing, and some could be upwards of 1 to 3 inches, maybe locally higher above 3 inches, depending on the exact track of this system. Thursday, it looks like we're mixing it out a little bit more rain and snow showers, so we'll watch for that potential mix. And before we continue with more weather coverage, check out these amazing, awesome maps from my affiliate here.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease, or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget, it's MeteoMark.com. And don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button, or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks, everyone. Share that video. Subscribe if you haven't. Smash that like button.